Hello. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our webinar today, The Guide to Success as a New Team Leader. My name is David Liberati. I am a marketing manager here at EEF, and I'll be chairing the webinar today. This webinar has been designed as a kind of a definitive guide to the team leader, exploring the role of the team leader at 360 degrees to help organization understand the key challenging that you are going to face, how to motivate and inspire teams, and the importance of developing skills and upskilling your leaders to be effective in your role. Today you'll hear from our L&D expert, Alison Valente, who has a wealth of experience and insight to share with you, and on how to effectively manage and develop your team for success. Now let's give a little bit of a background about Alison. Alison is not only one of our most experienced leadership trainers, she also supports many of our EEF members in all areas of HR, so from recruitment and selection through to grievance and ending the employment relationship. She draws on a rich experience to bring the training to life by introducing real life scenarios and presenting the best way of handling each situation. We could define Alison's style as a kind of a blended approach to learning, so which incorporates both the legislation and the practical application of the skills in the workplace. I'm really glad to see that we got lots of you joined us online, and we're really keen that you interact with us as much as possible. So we will be running a number of interactive polling questions for you to take part in. So when you see the voting questions appearing on your screen, simply select and submit your answer. Some of the question will be multiple choice. So you'll have only one option, and some of them you could select all those that apply. So your audio line is muted, but please send in your own question using the chat box feature on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will collect them, and we will aim at answering as many as possible in our final Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Having said that, I welcome everyone to the webinar, and hello, Alison.
Thank you, David, and good afternoon, everyone. As David mentioned, I'm going to take you through a journey touching all the key areas surrounding how to become an effective team leader. We will start from the beginning, that is, how does a team leader make a good start in the role? Then we will look at what key challenges do new team leaders face and how do we overcome them? Then we will discuss motivating and inspiring a team. This is key so employees are happy and productive. Next, we will explain our 7-step model to maximise your effectiveness. Once you've established yourself in the role as a team leader, we will consider what short and long-term development would be appropriate so you can fulfil your potential. Finally, there will be an opportunity for you to ask any questions you may have at the end of the presentation in our question and answer section. How to set yourself up for the best possible start. First of all, you need to be visible in your role from the onset. Walk around, communicate with your team continually. Ensure you listen to them and always get back to them when you promise to. Speak to each member of your team separately to understand their role. Understand their ambitions and familiarise yourselves with their previous appraisals or any skills matrices that may be in place. Gain an understanding of their skills, strengths, experiences and any areas for development is absolutely essential at this early stage. Communicate the role of the team within the wider business, the team's objectives and targets. Make sure you have your targets and objectives set up first so you can filter these appropriately through your team. Listen to your team and show empathy with any concerns they may have. Teams go through a number of stages before they become fully performing, so be aware of these stages and understand the challenges that they may bring. Demonstrate leadership qualities. There is a multitude of qualities and traits successful leaders must possess. However, At the start, the ones I'd like to highlight are lead by example, be positive, engaging, and listen to your team. Embrace change. If the company adopt new initiatives, always be supportive. Others will be looking to you to take the lead, and if you respond negatively, they are likely to as well. Ensure you are an exemplar in terms of following practices and procedures. For example, health and safety rules. Remember you are accountable for health and safety in your area. Develop your team so they are trained and competent to carry out their roles. Persevere with training and development for all your team, upskilling and developing them to their full potential. If you invest in them, they will feel valued. Always make sure that when they are trained and competent, you let them get on with the job. Don't micromanage them. In that way, they will feel trusted. Always remember, your team will not trust you until you trust them first. Show your team you care about them. It will reap its rewards. Communicate. Communicate regularly so all your team members are fully informed. This may involve toolbox talks, regular meetings, one-to-one communication, or communication by email or phone. However you communicate, do it carefully. Communicate to all those who need to know and not everyone. Communicate sensitively to ensure that the message behind the communication does not get lost. For example, a team leader who communicates, you failed to achieve your targets, you're not meeting what you're required to do, is likely to get a reaction about the tone of the email. Even if it's true, the message will get lost amongst the emotion. So team leaders need to know the golden rules of handling sensitive conversations without damaging the employment relationship. We've created a blog article on this very topic. If you are interested, head to eef.org.uk and look for 11 golden rules for handling performance conversations informally in the main search bar. A little word on meetings. A recent Meetings Squared research survey found that UK staff are spending increasing amounts of time preparing for and attending meetings. In fact, the average worker attends 3.7 meetings every week, spending 1 hour, 9 minutes preparing for each meeting and 1 hour, 22 minutes actually attending it. In any given working week, this means spending more than a day preparing for and attending meetings. Across a 40-year career, this equates to a total of 17,470 hours. 2 entire years of someone's life, or around 10 years of working time. So don't attend meetings for meeting's sake. Ensure that each meeting has an agenda and stick to it to ensure that meetings are necessary and productive, with clear outcomes that are implemented and don't get lost. Choose your medium of communication very carefully. Listen to your team and have the courage to try out their ideas. One of our member companies has an employee on the shop floor who is very inventive. He's always coming forward with new ideas. His manager embraces those ideas and implements them to continuously improve processes. That is part of being an effective leader. Listening to those who can contribute to the success of the business and to have the courage to embrace their good ideas is very important. The employee is motivated fully, which spurs him on to make good improvement suggestions. Now imagine another manager who wouldn't entertain any new ideas and the detrimental effect that would have on the business and on the motivation of the individual. You need to have common sense and make those difficult decisions. For example, you have an employee who is not going to succeed in their role. A common sense decision would be to end their employment. In this case, make sure you are assertive and decisive. It's certainly a difficult and unpleasant task, but a good team leader ensures they are surrounded with people who are competent and capable. Abraham Lincoln once said, "If you want to test a man's true character, give him power." This is very true and still applicable to modern leadership today. Ensure you don't abuse your power by being aggressive or coercive. Use your power as a leader to bring out the very best in your team. As an example, one of the cases that I dealt with was a complaint against an employee by a customer. The director went to see the customer. The lady was very upset and waiting for his return. He returned and she asked him, "What happened? Was the customer okay?" Clearly very worried about the complaint and the effect on the business. The director said, "I'm too busy to discuss it with you now. I'll discuss it with you at your appraisal in 3 weeks' time." This is a trust buster, lacks emotional intelligence, and is an abuse of power. Let's pass now to feedback. Never underestimate the power of positive feedback. In fact, providing constructive, positive feedback is crucial to motivate your team. However, when you are giving feedback in a formal appraisal setting, ensure that you explain what it is the employee has done well, so they understand that for their personal development. A simple thank you at the end of a shift is a good example, as it is an acknowledgement of how hard the team have worked. Delegate readily to those in your team in accordance with their skills, knowledge, and abilities. Delegating does not mean letting go, because you oversee and monitor the work being carried out. However, if you don't delegate, you will spend much of your time carrying out tasks which aren't urgent and important for you to do. I often hear managers say it will take more time to show someone how to carry out a task than to do it myself. It's not a good argument, because if you spend an hour a day carrying out work you shouldn't be doing, that's 5 hours a week, 10 hours every 2 weeks, 40 hours a month. So to the contrary, you don't have time not to train and guide a team player to carry out what are their duties and responsibilities. Now I'd like to pass back to David for a polling question.
Thank you, Alison. So for our first polling question of today, you all should be able to see the question on your screen. So we are curious to know where you stand in terms of effective delegation. So the first question of today is, how many hours per week do you spend completing tasks that are not your direct responsibility? Maybe you are great, you don't do anything at all that you shouldn't be doing in your role. You spend up to 2 hours doing tasks out of your responsibility, between 3 and 5 hours, 6 or 7 hours, or 8 hours or more. So please, I'll leave you a few seconds to submit your answer, and then we will collect all of them and show the results, and Alison will give her thoughts on them. So just waiting some few more seconds to allow you guys to respond. So this is one of the indicators of an effective delegation capability, and one of the ways of capturing that particular dimension of leadership, that particular skill. Getting there, so I just wait another 5-10 seconds or so to allow the very last ones to put their vote. Okay, so now I'm going to close the poll so we can take a look at the results. Okay, so you all should be able to see the results on your screen. We have 41%. So the majority of the audience spends between 0 and 2 hours doing tasks that are not their responsibility. 30 is followed by 36% that does between 3 and 5 hours. So it's about 1 hour per day. And then 9% that spends 8 hours or more. And 9% that actually doesn't spend any time performing tasks out of the remit, and 6% only that does 6-7 hours. So Alison, we got most of the audience that spend between 0 and 2 hours, and also actually over 1/3 that spend 3 to 5 hours per week performing the tasks that are not their responsibility. So what do you think about this?
Yes, I think it's quite common. Certainly 3 to 5 hours a week spent doing work which isn't urgent and important for the person who's doing the work, the manager. What I would encourage people to do is to complete a timesheet of what they do on one particular day. You can choose any day, try and choose a day which is quite a normal day for you, and write down everything you do on that day from the minute you walk in until the minute you leave. That's the best way to accurately predict how much time you spend doing work which isn't urgent and important for you. So just to highlight this a bit further, I was doing some training on one occasion, and one of the modules was time management. And a director said to me, I don't need to come on to this bit of the course because I manage my time very well. Anyway, he did come on the course. He'd completed his timesheet, and he said, I can't believe it. I spend an hour and a half a day walking along the shop floor, carrying out a task which I shouldn't be doing. That's 1.5 hours a day. So the best way to find out is to complete that timesheet, and that will really make you stand back and have a look at it. The reasons why we do it are because we're a bit of a control freak and we like to manage what we're doing and take full management and actually do it. Or we're nervous about delegating to people because we are concerned about whether they're going to do the job well, so a bit of a trust, or we're a perfectionist. So I'd challenge everyone on the webinar today to go away and do that timeline, and just to see how much time they spend doing jobs which aren't urgent and important for them, and then look about how they're going to fix it. Because if they're spending that time doing that work, it will never change unless they do something to change it.
That's great. Thanks a lot for your thoughts, Alice, and also for sharing a little bit of a methodology for time management. Now I'm just going to pass on back over to you to continue our presentation.
Another important thing to keep in mind is to be strong from the start. It's far easier to start with a strong approach and to soften it than it is to start by being quite lenient and letting negative behaviours go unchallenged. We also need to be decisive. If you're making a big decision, weigh up the pros and cons, arrive at a decision and stick to it. Remember the expertise of the people around you that may help you to make that decision. Make the step up from being part of a team to leading it. That's often thrilling. After all, who hasn't envisaged what they would do if they were in charge? But actually, making the transition and engaging the colleagues is a challenge. Whether you're a team leader that has worked hard and moved up your organisation's hierarchy, or you've joined a new company with new leadership responsibilities, the challenges of a team leader faces are often the same. So there are 5 key challenges that a new team leader faces. Friend versus boss. Finding the right distance or invisible gap that the team leader should maintain between them and the team is a difficult one early on in the relationship. Get too close and it becomes harder to be objective and firm with the team when it's needed. Stay too distant and it becomes very difficult to develop a strong sense of team cohesiveness, resulting in a loss of engagement with the individual team members. To achieve this, start how you mean to go on. Make the step change to leader Provide direction, set targets, set boundaries, and very importantly, lead by example and treat everyone consistently and professionally. Make no exceptions for those you were close to before you were promoted. Secondly, understand the role. Having clarity on both responsibilities and boundaries of your role is crucial to developing confidence in decision making. In a world of increasing legislation around employment practices, this is often at the root of many difficult situations team leaders find themselves facing. Become familiar with those organisational procedures and policies which directly affect how you do your job. Understand your role and responsibilities within the procedures and stick to the procedures at all times. Understand when you need to escalate matters to a higher level, and if you have any queries, always refer to your line manager for guidance. Shorten the learning curve. It's true there's no substitute for experience, but bad experience can be both damaging to confidence and also to longer-term career progression. If you practice doing something badly for long enough, you can become very good at doing something badly. Formal learning through a structured training program will give team leaders the core knowledge and lots of tools and techniques to enable them to perform at a higher level much quicker than an unstructured approach. Be true to yourself. Leadership at any level is hugely influenced by the individual person and their own preferred way of doing things. If you do not treat people how you'd like to be treated, for example, you micromanage them when it's not necessary, this can lead to low morale and ultimately damage to production. Try to do things in a way which doesn't contradict your own personal values while still being open to do things in a different way. Don't just listen to the yes crowd. Remember that the strengths you demonstrated to get the team leader role are highly valued by the organisation. And number 5, map out a personal development plan. Self-awareness is the most important element for team leaders in order to develop good emotional intelligence. For example, one of your team are very upset. You don't approach them to find out why. They feel uncared for and unable to approach you about their problem. As a result, they go off sick. Identifying early on what areas you may need to focus on for future development will be fundamental to realising your full potential and to become an effective team leader. You can seek feedback from your managers, peers and subordinates. I always recommend team leaders do this. Your development plan should ideally be developed and coordinated through your formal performance review process. Identifying a strong role model within your organisation so they can help support you in your development, that can be extremely helpful. But be careful not to try to just copy your role model. You are your own person, and the idea is to use the skills that they do really well and build that into your toolkit. An essential part of being a successful team leader involves being able to motivate and inspire your team. This is key to retain your talent and achieve the team's objectives. So let's take a look now at the best ways to keep your team motivated over time. First of all, you should set a clear direction and goals which are in line with business needs, so everyone is working towards the same goals. This sounds very easy. However, often members of a team are carrying out work which may take time to do and it's not ultimately necessary. Lots of times I've seen companies where team members are putting together large documents which aren't necessarily needed anymore, written reports. So try and work out which ones are being historically carried out, time's moved on, and they're not as necessary anymore. Communicate team direction, objectives and goals. The best way to do this is effectively through appraisals. However, it's equally important to set daily objectives. Communicate the team and company vision so everyone is aware of the company's long-term goals and can visualise the future positive outcomes of their work. Involving employees in this way will enhance their understanding and increase motivation. A good example of this, one of our member companies has been reviewing their long-term goals and strategy and has implemented a communication process that has filtered through the organisation from the top. Everyone understands where the company are now, where they are aiming to be, and their role in achieving the company's goals. These goals have been filtered through the appraisal system to all employees who've now been given individual objectives to meet these goals. Because the communication process has been so robust, employees are motivated to achieving these goals. Empower people. Always trust people first. However, also remember you have to have emotional intelligence and care about them too. No one wants to do a job badly, so it's important that we develop our team so they perform to the best of their ability. No one likes to be micromanaged. Trusting your team by delegating tasks to them and letting them carry out those tasks will empower them. Team members who are not trusted to carry out certain aspects when they are capable of doing so don't feel they are making a valuable contribution in their role. As a result, they often become frustrated and demotivated and may well leave the business. In order to avoid this, remember that taking accountability develops pride in themselves, just as you had pride in being able to carry out your role. Encourage teamwork. There are lots of ways you can do this. One example might be to have team targets visually located near to the workstation, team building initiatives, celebrations of team success, award ceremonies, away days, fun days for all employees to reward excellent performance. It's very important to be honest. Don't say everything is great if it isn't. Being honest and giving honest feedback helps people to grow and develop. There's no more of a great accolade to you than you helped me to grow and develop in the role to be promoted to where I am now. I'd now like to pass back to David for a polling question.
Thanks, Alison. So my next question is about teamwork and specifically about what are the ways in which what are the most common way to encourage teamwork within your company? So what do you do in your business in order to encourage teamwork? Maybe you arrange regular away days, or do you set some rituals such as social events, or maybe you all don't organize reward and recognition ceremonies and awards. Some people may be using visual prompts in the workplace, so in order to visualize those mission goals, the vision, inspiring quotes maybe. Or some people also uses a more formal approach by linking the team objectives with the performance of the person or the individual. So especially in the appraisal. So yeah, please feel free to select all those that apply to you and to your situation. And as always, I will give you about half a minute in order to submit your answer, so we can collect all and share some insight. And our Alison will give us her thoughts on the results as well. Of course, these are not comprehensive of all the possible ways to encourage teamwork, because they can be really a lot. But let's say we wanted to include the most common ones we came across to our membership base. So, and we're really interested to know what are the ones that are most used in your company, in your business. So I will just give you another 10 seconds or so to vote, and then I'll close the poll and we'll share the results. Okay, so I think everyone pretty much submitted their vote, so I'm going to close the poll now, and let's take a look at the results. So, of course, since this is a multiple answers allowed question, the the percentages are not to be referred to, but the most popular answer, Alison, for this particular question are most of the people actually uses visual prompts in the workplace. So like mission, vision, and quotes. And also second place is reward and recognition awards. And also most of the people use small rituals in the workplace in order to encourage teamwork, and follow shortly by linking team goals with personal goals. So it looks like there is a lot of balance in the different options. The team away days is only 13%, so it's a little bit behind the rest. But looks like there is a lot of balance in the choice of the way to encourage teamwork. So what do you think?
I think I've seen lots of visual prompts within member companies, and they're all very inspiring. So that's good. And the rewards and recognitions awards, quite a number of companies are carrying those out now. Need to make sure really that we have a good panel for reviewing who achieves those rewards and who the finalists are going to be. And with any kind of team working event, making sure that everyone's included on sort of team away days, etc. So I think that, yeah, pretty common ways of encouraging and good ways of encouraging teamwork in the company.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks a lot, and back over to you for the presentation.
Motivating and inspiring your team. Always be supportive. Treat people how you would like to be treated. Support training and development and personal growth. If you invest in your team's development, it can reap its rewards in terms of motivation and production. Ensure you treat training and development as a high priority. Continually review the training and development needs of your team. Formally carry out appraisals, and outside that time, one-to-one sessions to check progress. There's nothing worse than somebody saying, I wanted computer training 10 years ago and it hasn't yet happened. Praise and give feedback. Even where people are following the rules, it's motivational. Mentoring, coaching and training. Support them to achieve their goals. Put in place mentoring, coaching and training, work shadowing and any other interventions that may help them. For example, EEF offers an ILM Level 3 award in coaching specifically designed to help managers in doing so. Always remember when we're looking at training that people will learn at a different kind of rate. So often I hear supervisors say to me that they've got really good people now, they're star performers, but they took longer to learn than others did. But when they grasped the skills that they needed for the role, they turned out to be exceptional. Always be positive about opportunities for advancement, even if it's out of your area of the workplace. If you support someone so they are ready for promotion, don't look at this negatively, that they may leave your team. You have been inspirational in furthering their career, and you should be proud for having done so. So, there are 7 steps to becoming a team leader. Being a team leader means being able to inspire the respect and confidence in your team to perform better and reach new levels of productivity. If you're responsible for leading a team within your organisation, then you've probably already asked yourself, how can I become more effective? EF created a 7-step model to help you get on the right track to become the leader of a productive, successful team. Have a clear perspective on your strengths and areas for improvement. No one can be good at everything, and sometimes people dilute their strengths by directing too much effort into areas for improvement. Instead, focus on the strengths you know you can foster for even more effective leadership. Model yourself on those you see as competent in certain areas you want to develop in. Walk a mile in someone else's shoes. More specifically, walk that mile in the shoes of those you are leading. To lead others effectively, you must need to view situations not only from your personal perspective, but theirs too. Most workplace conflict comes from a misunderstanding of the other person's view of a given situation. One director, one of our member companies, actually works on the shop floor 1 day a month to find out exactly what happens on the shop floor and how the processes work, and that's very well valued and inspires morale within the workplace. Take a firm stance early on. Demonstrate leadership qualities and make the step change to a team leader. Build a network of peers. It's important to have a network of people in a similar role. The most effective form of learning is on the job, so sharing experiences about day-to-day situations with others in similar roles can have serious benefits in learning, self-confidence, problem-solving, and conflict resolution. If you can, join professional membership bodies and attend relevant industry conferences, and I'd encourage you to do so. Work on your relationship with your line manager. Your line manager will have the greatest influence on your ability to carry out your duties effectively. Firstly, try to gain their respect by doing the simple tasks defined within your role well. Build a trust that will then enable them to delegate more to you and trust you with more responsibility, hence increasing your development and capabilities at the same time. Have a formal plan for your personal development. Your ongoing development as a manager and leader is important and can include both technical development, such as systems, processes, products, etc., and leadership development needs, assertiveness, ability to manage conflict, good communication skills. Make sure this is a long-term plan that prepares you for both your current role and also desired future roles. We'll take a deeper look at this in the next section of the presentation. Once you have established yourself in your role, you must look at how you can develop in order to advance on your career path. To grow as a team leader, we suggest to develop both a short and long-term development plan. This starts with a skills audit, considering the skills, knowledge and experience you have, and aligning this with your job description and focusing on the gaps. Here you can see a typical example of a skills audit template. Typical skills assessed by this audit might include time management, how to be better at time management to be more productive, how to carry out effective meetings, problem solving, HR practices, the ability to coach and mentor your team. And how you complete this is you grade yourself, and from the feedback you receive from others, as a 1 if you are not proficient at, let's say, time management, through graded to a 5 if you think you are very proficient at time management. That skills audit can be extremely effective. The next step is a personal audit. That takes account the gaps in your non-professional skills, which are all listed on the screen for you. Things like handling stress, personal development. So here's an example of a personal audit. So we've got a skills audit and a personal audit. Very similar to the last one. You mark it as a 1 if you are not very proficient, up to a 5 if you are proficient. So you assign a score to each one of those. Then we need to look at creating a personal development plan. Where am I now? Where do I want to be? And how do I get there? Write SMART objectives to help you think through all the elements. So SMART is an acronym standing for specific, clear and well-defined with an element of stretch, measurable, so that the required level of achievement is clear and can be measured, agreed, owned by the individual but setting in collaboration with any manager and aligned to the business, realistic, challenging but achievable, and within the scope, control and ability of the employee, and timed to be achieved within a specific time scale. Then we complete a SWOT analysis, reviewing accurately your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities for training, and any threats that could hinder or slow down your development. So let's just have a little look at this example. Within strengths, what you might put is, what am I good at? Might be a good communicator. What do people praise me for? Handling difficult situations, maybe? Something along those lines it could be. What have I achieved and what qualifications have I got? Weaknesses. What mistakes do I make? What are the gaps in my skills, knowledge or experience? So it might be you're not very good at nipping situations in the bud. That might go down as a weakness. Opportunities, what training could I do? What support do I need and what is available to me? Always remember when we're looking at opportunities, it's not just stand-up training, it's mentoring where you're seeking advice from an expert. It's coaching where you are the expert, but you are talking through where you are now, where you want to be with a coach. It might be work shadowing. So think, what opportunities have I actually got to develop? And any threats, what will stop me? Time, support, lack of information, lack of motivation. How will I overcome these obstacles? So a SWOT analysis is very important. On the back of this analysis, the last step is to start a continuous professional development plan. Continuous professional development, known as CPD, is the process of tracking and documenting the skills, knowledge and experience that you gain both formally and informally as you work beyond any initial training. It's a record of what you experience, learn and then apply. The term is used to mean a physical folder or portfolio documenting your development as a professional, outlining the date of the activity, the type of the learning, details of the activity, any skill gap you've addressed, and how long it took. All actively contained in a CPD plan. That must be monitored, looking at the learning activity, the outcome, and how this was measured. Now, probably asking yourself, what does it look like? No problem, here it is. This is a typical example of a CPD log, which allows you to register all learning and development programs you've undertaken, together with details, what skills gaps have been addressed and duration. If you follow all of the tips in this webinar, it will enhance your ability to lead your team to becoming highly performing. I now pass back to David.
Thank you, Alison. So, touching on the subject of developing as a leader, we would like to ask you the following question, which is actually the last poll for the webinar for today. How often, if you do you arrange regular training and development for your team leaders? So this is a question particularly aimed at the HR managers, L&D manager, training managers in the house. So if you do you arrange regular training and development for your team leaders? Maybe you do it, yes, once every quarter, or maybe you do it once every 6 months, or maybe once a year, on a cyclical base, when you tend to do the training plans you then arrange the training for your people, for your teams. Maybe you do it only as and when required, so on a more case by case basis. And of course, if you're not sure, you don't know, don't remember, you can also select this option. So yeah, I'll give you a few seconds to vote, to submit your answer, and then we'll comment it together for our last question today. Okay, so we got the answers are coming through. I'll give you guys another 10 seconds or so to submit your vote. Okay, so I'm now going to close the poll, and let's take a look at the results, shall we? So over 50% of the audience, 54% of the audience today only arranges training and development as and when required. So on a case by case, basis. 15% of them does it once every quarter, and 13% does it either every 6 months or 12 months. And only 5% say that don't know, don't remember. So, Alison, over 1 out of 2 people only arranges training as and when required. So, doesn't seem to have like a specific training and development plan set from the start. What do you think?
Again, it's not uncommon that companies do training as and when required, but there are quite a lot of companies now who carry out appraisals on a yearly basis with a mid-year review. I always recommend that because that can identify training needs. We need to obviously follow through and ensure, maybe check that training plan as a team leader every month to make sure the people in your team are receiving that training. And it can actually be more cost effective as well, because if, let's say, you've got 25 people who need to be upskilled to operate a new machine, then you can coordinate that training together. So yes, some companies, and there's obviously 54% of companies do tend to do training case by case, but I would always recommend as well a more holistic look at training through an appraisal system, very beneficial to the individual. It's also an opportunity for the company to sit down with the individual and look at their personal development. People will only tell you their aspirations when you're sitting on a one-to-one with them normally. So, where do you want to be? And it might be quite surprising for the manager to know where the employee aspires to be within the business. So I'd always recommend that opportunity. It also gives an opportunity to give positive feedback to an employee if they've done particularly well, or developmental feedback as and when they need it.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for your comments, Alison, and for your analysis. So, and yeah, this was the last polling question for today's webinar, and we now open. I would like now to open the stage to answer your questions. We already got quite a lot of them coming through via the questions tab during the presentation. So I encourage you now to ask anything else you would like to clarify, or anything else that you'd like to know around the topic of effective team leadership now in the questions tab on your right hand side. So the first question is from Derek, who is asking what would be the best way to manage recurring conflict between 2 team members? So this is a very interesting question about recurring conflict.
Yes. Many managers sometimes avoid the conflict between 2 members because they don't know how to tackle it. We have referred earlier to a blog that we have on the website about handling difficult conversations. So the first thing I would say is that you do need to tackle the conflict, because if it isn't tackled, other team members may become demoralised and the atmosphere will become negative. Worst case scenario, production will be affected and people will leave because either the tide of a negative atmosphere or to escape the conflict if they're one of the two team members. So I would recommend that you talk to the two team members separately, arrange to bring them together to discuss a way forward. But I always recommend that managers concentrate on looking at a forward-focused plan on how the two team members will work together moving forward and put in place any measures to help them. Might involving a clearing of the air. However, sometimes situations are just too serious. Often when that happens, people are moved voluntarily to other areas of the shop floor, say, because it's easy, if you can move on to another area or into another shift pattern. However, sometimes it is not easy because the two people do need to work together. So in this situation, I would always recommend seeking guidance regarding a formal mediation. For a formal mediation to occur, there has to be a point of difference between two people. A lot of emotion, upset, anger, frustration. This could be through growing up, could be people that might have known each other a long time, or it could be an event that's happened that's triggered the emotions and the thoughts which has triggered the behaviour. A mediator that is where it is a professional mediation will come into the business. Both parties have to be happy to enter into the mediation. They will sign a document to say that nothing that they discuss in that mediation will be used in any proceedings moving forward. And basically, they're in separate rooms until the mediator thinks it's safe to bring them together. She or he will bring them together. And again, it will be, yes, touching on what's happened in the past, but very focused on a forward-focused plan of how they're going to work together moving forward. Might include training, an apology, regular meetings, and the company won't hear anything about that plan unless it's something that affects the business. So I'd say, Derek, try and tackle it by carrying out the mediation yourself, by seeing if you can try and resolve it, focusing on a forward-focused plan. But if it's too serious and you find that too difficult, I might explore with HR a way in which you might go towards a more formal mediation.
Okay, that's great. Thanks a lot, Alison, for asking the question, also introducing the mediation. Another question is from Amanda. Amanda is asking, how do you deal with a multicultural team to achieve team success? So how you combine only a different set of skills and competencies, but also how you make the most out of different cultural background in order to achieve the goals of the team.
Yes, well, I often get asked this question. We need to embrace diversity and promote dignity at work. I would say that's the first thing. We need to manage any breaches of dignity and respect seriously. For example, discrimination and harassment, nip them in the bud. So we need to promote dignity at work. We need to gain an understanding of different cultures, because doing so will build trust. For example, understanding Ramadan and the supporting people through their celebrations. Be very clear in your communication so that where English is not the employee's first language, they need to understand fully what is expected of them to avoid any misunderstandings. It's your responsibility to ensure that messages are received and understood. So we need to be really clear in our communication. Some of our member companies have an interpreter for each shift where workers' first language isn't English or they struggle with the language. Many team leaders a few of our member companies have team leaders who are, for example, Polish, because the majority of the workforce are Polish, but can also speak very good English. Avoid stereotyping and understand different communication styles. Understand why some cultures may be more direct in their communication style and embrace that. Encourage team working and team spirit by putting in place team building events. couldn't speak more highly of this in terms of bringing the team together. And if you do encourage teamwork and create team spirit, you'll be able to then take advantage of a multicultural team because of the creativity of different cultures, their ideas, their adaptability, and you will be able to draw on all of those different aspects to achieve business success.
Okay, thanks a lot. And we got a question from Duncan, very interesting one, that says most British organizations have an aversion to try out new ideas because of the risk of failure and the unacceptance of failing within the company culture. How can I embed the value of accepting failures and learning from mistakes into my team as well as into the company's processes?
Okay, when you're putting in place a new idea or changing, you need to have a plan. You need to have a project manager, somebody who is coordinating the change. You need to communicate with people about that change, and therefore making sure everybody understands what that change is, what that new idea is. And you also need to accept that people will make mistakes. Things will not always go smoothly. Some companies I go into have quite a blame culture, and people are afraid to admit they've made a mistake. So I would say, as a team leader and as a manager within any organisation, we do need to accept that, sometimes our new ideas might not work when we want them to, and not to create a blame culture, but to basically learn from that. What could we do differently next time to improve? So, where things sometimes don't go well and according to plan, there can be a good outcome in terms of how do we avoid this happening in the future, and how do we best move forward with this idea. So I often tell managers some managers I train admit that they are be perfect people. They like everything to be absolutely perfect and nothing to ever go wrong. So I often say to those people, try to think of what's the worst thing that can happen if this goes wrong, and practice telling yourself that it's okay to make a mistake. But obviously, we need to, that is all depending on the circumstances, but I would say that that's the best way forward on that one.
That's great. Thanks a lot again. And I think we got some time for last question. We received a lot of questions about this topic. So this is a question from Rachel, and says, what would be the best way to motivate an employee that is a very negative and pessimistic person? So we received quite a lot of questions about negativity and how to overcome that.
What I would do is, this is very difficult because people, when they're negative, will basically, their negativity deflects on everybody else, and everybody else finds it a difficult working environment. This is a difficult but challenging conversation. What I would do, I would take the person aside and I would use examples. So what I would say is, always start by being positive. So I'd say, I'm concerned that you don't appear happy at work. For example, last week you said you hated doing this job. This week you said you're bored about doing this. I want you to feel happy at work. So how are you feeling? And then we need to let them talk. And what they'll probably do is they'll come up with a massive reason, like, I'm sick of everything in here. But actually what we've got to do is we've got to focus in on what the problem is. So we ask, what exactly? Often there is a trust buster out there which has created this situation. Didn't get promoted, didn't get a pay rise, didn't get on with my manager. So what we say when that trust buster's out on the table is, I can't do anything about that because it's historic and it's already happened. So how can we work together to make you feel happier at work? And then you can talk about motivational things that they might do, like assisting others, using their expertise. But what we're actually doing by having that conversation is twofold. We're telling the person we've noticed, and we're taking the time to have the conversation. As long as it's not accusational, and we're doing it in a way whereby we're approaching it from I'm concerned you don't appear happy at work. These are the examples. How are you feeling? They will be able to say how they feel, and they might have it all pent up and not be able to do so. Then we can try and get over that trust buster, I would suggest, to move forward. Not an easy conversation, but it's a good one to have in order to look at increasing motivation.
Okay, that's really great. I am just aware of the time, so we just hit the 1 hour mark. So I would like to thanks a lot, Alison, and for sharing your insight, tips, and guidance on how to be a successful team leader and how to overcome the challenges. I would just like to leave you with a very last slide. Of course, knowing the challenges of the team leader and actually being able to meet them and overcome them can be two different things. So if you find this webinar interesting and useful and helpful for you, I would really like to recommend you a couple of training courses that EEF delivers. The first one is the New Team Leader, which is a course that EEF specifically developed to educate and inform those people who are new to the leadership or supervisor role and have not received any formal training yet. This is a 2 days course covering all the elements that go into making a good team leader and the challenges they face. So everything that you've seen in this webinar is getting actually to the life in an extremely practical session and in very in-depth session. It's also a great refresher for those people who have been in post for a while, but they want to update their skills, so they need to reskill in order to get promoted or get a particular face a particular business challenge or a particular project. The second one is the Award in Leadership and Team Skills, which is accredited by the ILM, the Institute of Leadership and Management. This is a highly practical team leader development program. It's 4 days and is aimed at those who are new to the role or have had some experience but little or no formal training. The course covers all the core knowledge and skills to support team leader, enable them to step into the role and really undertake the key responsibilities to communicate effectively and motivate their teams and individuals to maximize their performance. Each of these programs is run across either one of the many EEF training centers across the country, or alternatively, the program can be run at your own premises, specifically tailored to your business challenges and needs. So I just put up you can see on the screen, these are some of the upcoming dates that are coming out for each of the courses. But if you would like to have any more information of any of the EEF leadership and management training programs, please head to our website www.eef.org.uk/leadership, or give us a call at the 0845 293 9850, and our training advisor will be more than glad to help you facing your your leadership challenge or solving your problem. Having said that, I really hope you enjoyed the presentation today and found the content relevant and of interest for you. Thanks a lot for all your questions and taking part into our polls. And there are, of course, a lot of questions we didn't get the chance to answer. So if you want to have them answered, please email myself at the dliberati@eef.org.uk. You'll find my email in the confirmation email of the webinar, and I'll make sure those get answered. Also, you will receive a post-webinar survey. It's a very short one that will be sent over to you after the webinar closes. Please leave us a feedback, because we really strive to improve the quality of webinars and make it more and more relevant and useful for you. So every help is really precious for us in order to improve. And as some of the people asked whether they could have a copy of the slides or a copy of the recording. So I will send you an email most probably tomorrow with the recording of the webinar as well as the handout from the slides today. So having said that, I really thank you again for attending the webinar today, and I wish you a very rest of the day. Bye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.